Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the BDMMA channel. This will be a UFC 311 preview and prediction video, and I'm just going to go kind of off the cuff. No notes needed. I just have some live odds in front of me. I'm going to go fight by fight, and I just wanted to do a quick intro in that we should all be celebrating as MMA fans, especially on my channel, purists and smarks, the contribution to the sport of Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, being Khabib's father, if you don't know that. To have one fighter that you brought up from the time that you were teaching rudiments, if you will, or fundamentals or the foundations of any sport, to have four people that get to the world championship level, not just to get there but to win, and to get there without much flaw. Four students that are uniquely Abdulmanap's, in that Umar and Usman and Khabib all sharing that last name, and Islam essentially being like an adopted sibling to Khabib and training partner going back, I think, to when they were kids, but certainly like it seems like a couple of decades at least. For Abdulmanap to grassroots raise four world championship level undefeated type fighters that are dominating the sport still now is, I mean, to say it's astounding is it's an understatement. To think that there's any coach really in that discussion of accomplishment within their fighters, considering he didn't inherit anyone. So some of the bigger name gyms in the world, whether it's ATT in Coconut Creek or Jackson Wink for years, there's a million. I keep doing this. Those type gyms that end up attracting high level fighters eventually, I don't think are comparable to a grassroots type system, aka smaller gym, no pun, where you are building them from ground up, and that polish all happens within to motivate them and to be technically, or to have the technical acumen as well. There's no comparable coach, there's no comparable figure really in the history of MMA that could claim any such thing. It's rare when someone starts like Mighty Mouse, I guess, with Matt Hume, right? You have a kind of lifelong partnership or student coach or teacher apprentice, or however you want to score it. It's impressive, but that's it. I don't know any other student of Matt Hume's besides Demetrius, and as amazing as he is, it's one, not four. So just before we start going just through the fights that I think are pertinent, I do want to kind of tip my hat and just suggest we all do toward Abdulmanap's contributions to the modern MMA landscape. I think what the Dagestanis specifically have contributed just in grappling alone has, and this might even still be putting it lightly, it's changed the course of MMA. It's changed the way we look at MMA grappling, with striking in mind, something I've been preaching for over a decade now. It's all becoming actualized now, especially if Umar ends up winning. I mean, that's a wrap. I don't think you'll ever see a coach with the same type resume as Abdulmanap. So I wanted to kind of put him on the Mount Rushmore as like the first face. I mean, depending on how you want to, where you want to set the standard or what the discussion is exactly, the people that have contributed the most as far as non-fighters, he's certainly on top of that. And then you got to start looking at like what's Dana White's, what's his place in the Mount Rushmore in the pantheon, and I don't know, time will tell. But just incredible, absolutely incredible that we have Islam defending, trying to break the record for lightweight defenses in the UFC, which has always been a really competitive, difficult division to defend, even twice. And he's starting to approach that GOAT status, whereas I think Khabib was maybe the most dominant. I think Islam's resume is just becoming better and better and better, fight by fight. And I also think that his next fight might be his toughest, as Arman, as we saw in their first match, in his defensive wrestling, he's going to keep it honest. Certainly, he's dangerous. As far as who I'm picking, we'll get there. So the odds as of now in the fights that I want to mention are essentially all on the main card, although I did see that the main event, or the final fight of the prelims, is Peyton Talbot versus Ronnie Barcelos, and Talbot is minus 1,050 to Ronnie's plus 675. Those are bananas odds. This looks very Bo Nichols' first few fights as far as odds to me. I haven't seen enough Talbot to have a strong opinion either way, but I know the company's behind him a lot. I just don't know if they're trying to do this like Lenny Kravitz dating app kind of dude, or if the guy's just that legit. It seems kind kind of like the prior, but I don't know. I haven't seen enough to have a strong opinion either way. I would stay away from that fight, but I'll be watching it closely, as I'd like to see a fight with him, well, with Peyton specifically, go a little longer than, say, the 15 seconds, he's accumulated so far. Leading off the main card, we have Kevin Holland versus Rene de Ritter. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I'm not entirely sure. Watched 20 fights on mute. That's essentially a pick'em. You have Holland at -108 versus Rene at -112. From the Netherlands, world-class grappler by all accords. Holland is a mixed martial artist, but although he's much more dangerous striking. If he can keep it there, it's his fight to lose. But if it goes to the ground, we've seen him sort of fold. And I don't think, the Hamzat one, we should really judge all too to be similar to this. I don't think that Rene has the same kind of takedown offense or the ability to get it to the ground as, say, Hamzat did. But if it gets there, I think his submission game is equally dangerous anyway. And if it stays standing, I would certainly favor Holland. And I'm going to pick him just via UFC jitters. People's debut in the octagon sometimes isn't always the best before they kind of settle in. And this is a big card to kind of make your debut. So I'm going to pick Holland in that fight. It may be unpopular, but that's just what my gut's telling me. I think we'll be able to keep standing and crack them. Next up, and the next two are essentially pick'ems. You have Neil Dariush, the number 9 ranked lightweight, at +136, I'm sorry, and Renato Money Moicano at -162, so he's a slight favorite. He's the number 10 ranked lightweight. I think Moicano is on a really good run. He had a pretty tough loss to Rafael Fiziev, and that was a striking fight, and it could happen to anyone. I think Fiziev's fight with Gaethje was closer than people remember. But I like Moicano to win this just via his momentum, his youth, his hunger. He's gotten better. I think now that he's not cutting all the way down to 145, he's just been better overall. And I like his gimmick. I like the whole gig. And again, this may be selfish, but I just want to see that dude on the mic after the fight talking about second amends this country. I fucking love this country. It's first amends and guns. I like to hunt. Guy rules. I don't know who gave him the idea for the gimmick or if it's organic, but I'm on board. So I'm gonna take Moicano in that fight. And next up, we have one that I can't see even going 3 rounds. Honestly, I think it's one of those someone's going to sleep fights. So it seems when you say that, doesn't happen. Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill, both recent victims of Peloton, and it's another pick'em essentially. You have Yuri at +114, so he's a slight dog, and Hill is -135, so slight favorite. I like Hill to win the fight. I think he's the more polished of the two. I do think Yuri is dangerous for obvious reasons. He's just a one-hitter quitter type, awkward striker that is dangerous for anyone. He was dangerous for even Peloton on the feet. I don't see much grappling happening in that fight at all. I think it'll stay standing, and I think Jamal will catch him maybe late 1, early 2. I don't think that one's going too long. And I also think noteworthy is that Prochazka's coming off that head kick knockout to Peloton not that long ago, and it seemed a little more violent and perhaps catastrophic than Hill's loss. And, you can only take so many of those before the brain starts shutting off a little easier and easier every time the chin is touched. So I like Hill to win that. I wouldn't go crazy on that fight. I mean, there's no fight on this card I feel like great about betting on, but from an entertainment standpoint, I can't wait to see some of these fights. I think it's one of the best of the year for sure, this card. Next up, and we're already into the title fights and the co-main, we have Merab versus Umar, and Umar at the moment is -285, which seems a little high considering Merab's just dominance against everyone. He's getting better fight to fight. The thing that I can't get out of my head, and if you're tempted to take Merab at +230, just hear me out on this kind of logical way to approach this. Maybe he's right in that Umar is untested, and maybe Merab's wrestling will be too much as well as his cardio, etc., etc. But of all people to go against, that could perhaps handle enough of the grappling to keep the fight standing in spots and control range, which is what O'Malley was unable to do, like set his feet with any comfort whatsoever. So even O'Malley, who's a master with distance in striking fights, he was so worried about the takedown, and as you tire, it obviously gets exponential, but he couldn't really set his feet or find his own range because Merab was picking his spots in which to shoot very intelligently. differently. I think Umar is less afraid of someone shooting a takedown on him, more capable of turning it around on them, and also just as dangerous on the feet. I didn't see too many people prior to the Umar versus Sandhagen fight talking about Corey's defensive wrestling ability, and I hadn't seen it prior. I had seen holes in it against like Aljamain, for instance, but Corey is a very dangerous striker, and watching that fight as a fan of both, I was surprised certainly with that, but as the fight progressed, I was most surprised really with Umar's ability to outstrike Corey, and he did that. I mean, clearly, I haven't heard anyone try to make an argument for the other case, and to beat someone as skilled as Corey in an all-striking fight in which Corey just displayed incredible defensive wrestling that I don't think anyone really saw coming is impressive to say the least. So resume aside, and the fact that fighters are skipping Umar, they're just going, nah, I'm good in the top 5. That's why he is where he is. It's not because earned, deserve's got nothing to do with it. As Snoop once said, it's his time. He's young, he's hungry, he's an undefeated lion, he's amazing, and I think Umar is the better striker, and I think if he can keep it standing just enough to not get frustrated, then he can clip Merab like others have, and much like Islam Charles, I don't think he'll be afraid to follow up properly and maybe even take his time a bit on the ground. I can see Umar hurting Merab enough standing to submit him on the ground. Not early per se, maybe in the 3rd, early 4th, I see that happening, and it could also go 5, but I think Umar could bust him up pretty bad in those 5 rounds. I don't see this fight going like most of Merab's prior fights, where it's just this wrestling cardio swarm where Umar sort of folds like everyone else, and then the last few rounds are almost predictable at that point. I don't like the line. I think minus 285 is a little extreme, so I don't know as far as like gamblers out there. I don't know. I think that's a little high, but I certainly like Umar to win the fight. So if you're okay with paying 285 to win 100, I would pick Umar. I wouldn't be surprised if Merab wins. He's skilled enough. He has the wrestling acumen. His MMA wrestling is fantastic. And if I had any doubts, they were certainly answered when he fought Cejudo. Some of the takedowns and chain wrestling. He had this beautiful kind of single leg where he went around like cross hip. Just beautiful technical wrestling to go with a really blue collar style of fight, and just endless machine like cardio. Really, Merab is dangerous for anyone at that weight. I just think Umar's taller than maybe some people think. He's almost as tall as Corey when he fought Sandhagen, so he's probably 5'9"-ish. Merab might be 4-ish. Seems to be quite a reach differential, and Umar uses that length like incredibly well. Whether it's lead leg push kicks, he's got those incredible question mark kicks with either leg. He switches stance a lot, and it's kind of an economical switch stance where it's not this telegraph thing. It's just where's the fight taking him. He's got a great jab, great teep, great high kicks, great low kicks, tremendous defensive boxing, and I can see him doing enough damage standing for Merab to make a mistake and then him capitalize on it. I don't think it'll be early. I think the fight will play out a smidge, but I think Umar has been dealing with people like Islam and Habib being the hammer to his nail for so long that I don't think there's anything Merab's going to show him that he hasn't seen. That doesn't mean he'll win. I just don't think he'll be overwhelmed. That kind of 1,000-mile or whatever blank stare of defeat happening in the late 3rd round, say, which we've seen Merab do to enough people to know it's real. I just don't think that'll be the case with Umar. I think it's going to be new, and I wouldn't bet the house on it, but I would bet on it. I think you just got to look at things as far as who's got more in their toolkit and who's the more skilled fighter and where are the discrepancies. And I think the discrepancy in striking is much more of a gap than anywhere else, certainly in the wrestling. I think there is a chance that Umar can grapple right along with Merab. I don't think he's better. I just think it's a combinatory thing where I have to go with the person that has more tools or has more on their Swiss Army knife, if you will. So I think it'll be close. I think we're going to see a new champion, and how incredible will that be, right? And then main event wise, I've said for a while that I think Arman is the #1 most dangerous threat to Islam, just due to defensive wrestling, but also due to athleticism, power, ability to end fights, and just being a violent fighter, kind of chaotic, in the same way that Merab is. He's also a big underdog. This is another line that seems a little off to me, but I guess with Islam's dominance as of late, it makes more sense. You have Arman as the underdog at plus 260, and you have Islam Makhachev as the favorite at minus 325. That aside, I think Islam gets it done. I think his striking has grown exponentially since the last time they fought, to the point where he may just want it to be a kickboxing affair. Now, is that maybe the smartest thing? I'm not sure, because I think Arman is dangerous standing, and I think he's shown that. I do think, however, and I think this is worth noting, there's this, the chaotic nature of Arman's striking is what makes him as dangerous as it does susceptible, if that makes sense. He tends to have these flashy looking strikes and or combinations that are certainly vicious enough and technical enough offensively to do damage, but in the interim he doesn't seem defensively responsible enough to maybe be throwing things like X kicks and spinning X and Y. It's like he's always trying to hint at a special technique and a secret this. That's not how it works. It's never how it's worked, right? Whether it's, we go all the way back to like a Prince Nassim Ahmed, sometimes flash is just going to get smoked by substance at the highest levels of the sport. There's only one Roy Jones, there's only one. Now that we're talking about high level grappling being involved and just super technical, like perfectly technical fighting, that would be Islam. I don't think there's room for a chin in the air blitzing XYZ or a Superman punch into a high kick. I know he's been like hinting at some there aren't secret techniques. I don't really know what he's even hinting at. I know he likes to throw a Superman punch into a high kick, like in sparring. I don't know if that's what he plans on doing, but it's like, I think Islam's seen that, dude. I can't, how do you pick against Islam? I mean, if he wins this, he's not only setting a new bar at lightweight as far as title defenses, he's starting to approach that GOAT status, undeniably so. And for him to go 5 rounds like he did with Dustin, most of it standing, the way that he clipped Charles, the way that he followed him down to the ground, which I think, going back to the prior fight, is going to be kind of the difference. If Umar does hurt Merab, I think there's a similar thing in the Islam fight, but I think it'll happen via patience, via technique, and via defense. Islam is just a more solid fighter, especially standing. Islam has tremendous defense. I think Arman has shown tremendous wrestling defense in the past. Will he this time, with a full camp in the world kind of knowing a bit more, a little more tape to study, etc., etc.? I don't know. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I do see Islam finishing Arman standing. I just think Arman keeps his chin a little high in the air, and Islam is a phenomenal counterpuncher with great defensive instinct. He doesn't get hit flush very often by anyone, minus his one loss in was 2016. Many moons have passed. His striking has gotten much better. His footwork has gotten better. His kicking game is solid, and he's a gamer. There aren't many people with a combination of submission, threat, ability to get the fight to the ground. So he controls the pace via his footwork, the geography, as Teddy Atlas would say, via also footwork, but his feint game, and you don't know now at this point in his career if he's going to be, approaching things as like a mix-up type fight where he's going from striking to takedown, back to striking to the clinch. Got a phenomenal Thai plum, for instance. Like if you watch the fight with Poirier, say, I think it's about a minute into the fight where he has this sequence where he kind of goes on the 1 and the 3, so he kind of, I think he approaches Dustin with like a parry jab, kind of back steps into a 2, then he throws like a hook, another back step, like a pull into a single leg conversion, double leg takedown. Like that whole sequence, the rhythm and the cadence to things and the way that Islam controls that pacing and that distance is just, it's phenomenal. The way that he beat Charles was so spectacular. The way that he beat Dustin in the 5th to pull that short arm Darce off of that wheelbarrow single leg. I mean, there's or golf swing single leg into the short arm Darce. And there wasn't much time on the clock when he did that. He was bloodied up. Islam has proven his worth, his acumen, his GOAT status repeatedly, and I think he'll get it done again. Now, I do want to have a bit of a disclaimer here in all these fights, and that I don't know. A lot of these fights are a little I don't know. And these, if I was to pick Umar to win the belt, say when O'Malley was champ, right, I would have said his toughest test was Merab before Merab won the belt. And I've thought for a long time now that Islam, and they fought, so it's not like I'm a soothsayer in this. Arman is Islam's toughest test as well. I think if Umar beats Merab, I don't know who at 135 is giving him a fight besides Merab. And if Islam beats Arman, I just want to see him move up to 170. I think he's kind of done what he can at 155, and most of the contenders are And if Ilya moves up, it's like, I understand why Islam doesn't want to keep eating 145ers, because it's almost like a thankless job, if you will. But I like this to be an all Dagestani co-main and main. I know the odds are a little funky, but that's how I see it going. I think Islam is just too technical, just too good everywhere. His submission game is as good as his striking game, and although he's more of like a judo stylist, a timing takedown type, whereas Khabib, I think, had better like freestyle wrestling and ability to maybe keep someone grounded. I think because Islam's striking is so much more dangerous, that makes him a different threat entirely, but an equal threat in some ways. And though Arman is phenomenal and spectacular and can certainly turn the lights off and or hurt Islam, I think Islam has more ways to win and much better defense. And when things all kind of even out at the end and you gotta go, I don't know, they're pretty even, I just kind of go, well, all right, who's more technical, who's more apt to get hit? And though there's the banana peel factor, the unpredictability factor with Arman and his explosive athleticism, etc., I don't think he has the same sound foundation as Islam. And if I'm right and it is an Umar Islam kind of night, that's just tremendous to think that Eagles MMA has produced 4 world champions, 4, and 1 loss amongst them. I mean, it's unheard of, especially again from a grassroots, ground up kind of a approach. I can't wait for these fights. I think this card should be tremendous. Even if it's wrestle heavy, I think it'll be so technical. It'll be entertaining even for the lay fan. And Smarks, we don't care. We'll take it any way we can get it, right? So I think it'll be an all Dagestani win at the top of the card. The rest are a little bit coin flippy. I don't know what to think about this Peyton Talbot kid. Hopefully that fight's a little longer so I can get a better read on his skill set and ability and maybe the logic behind his push. And otherwise, we should just kind of enjoy. I'm thinking of trying to do something either, I don't know, maybe Saturday right after the fights, or maybe Sunday at some point where I just do a recap, or maybe something right around there. And if I have time, maybe I'll do some kind of a breakdown like the day of, but I don't know what kind of time I'll have. But I hadn't done one of these in a while, and no one's heard my voice, so figured no time like the present. Anywho, that's it. That's about all I got for today, and thank you for tuning in. Good luck with your picks if you're gambling, etc. Let me know if you think I'm wrong, you think I'm right, you agree, and if odds are changing or if that even matters to you at all. Just comment below. It always helps the algorithm that I can't seem to beat. We're like 100 subscribers away from 30,000, so tell a friend, huh? It'll be appreciated. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.